Nearly 2 weeks into the war with Iran, President Trump is declaring victory, all as Reuters reports that Iran's new leader is calling for unity among his people in a statement released just in the last hour. Inside Iran, though, the people face a grim reality amid the violence. Millions of people are living with unbreathable air after strikes on fuel depots unleashed a cloud of toxic smoke. And across the country, the Ministry of Culture and Heritage says heritage sites have been decimated. And now a preliminary inquiry from the Pentagon has found that the U.S. is likely at fault for that strike on a school that killed at least 170 people, many of them children. The nationwide death toll in Iran now surpassing 1,300, according to Iranian officials. Joining us now is NYU professor of comparative Middle East politics, Eran Keshavarzian. He's also an author, and his most recent book is called Making Space for the Gulf, Histories of Regionalism and the Middle East. Professor Keshavarzian, thank you so much for coming in. First to this news from the Supreme Leader. Reuters is reporting that in a written statement this morning that was read on state TV, he is calling for unity among his people. Professor, what is supposed unity among the people in Iran supposed to look like in this moment?
Yes, thank you for having me. At this moment, the regime primarily wants to depict normalcy, continuity with the previous leader. They're actually calling on people to come to the streets to, in a sense, acknowledge the new leader, the new leadership. They want people going to stores. They want as much as possible to depict life as normal. But as you just correctly pointed out, life is not normal. There's a lot of fear. Everything from schools to banks to historic sites have been hit. The situation with the air quality is quite dire after the Israelis bombed the oil facilities. So definitely life is not normal. Telecommunications, the internet, all of these blockages are making life very difficult for ordinary Iranians, some of whom may be opposed to the regime, but under a war condition, there is definitely a sense of taking care of one's own first and concern for the whole nation.
Yeah, survival mode as individuals, I'm sure. What do you make of the fact that this first statement, the first comments from this new supreme leader are in written word instead of him potentially putting a video or something together?
Yeah, so it is a very odd situation. He clearly is injured. They've acknowledged that, and Israeli and U.S. military suggest that it's happened. But you should know that even before the war, he was not a very well-known person. He managed his father's kind of office. He was behind the scenes, very close to the security apparatus, absolutely. But he was not a public figure that ordinary Iranians knew. He wasn't on TV. Didn't hear his voice very much. So he's an unknown figure, but also somewhat of a divisive figure. So it's going to take him months, if not years, to really cement his hold on power. The same was true in the 1980s when his father took office. So this is really a transitional moment. Even if there was no war, it would be a challenging and transitional moment for the Islamic Republic. But this is obviously doubly so because of the ongoing war, which, frankly, from the perspective of Iranian society, it's not clear when it's going to come to an end. As we know, President Trump claims that victory, but the bombs still rain down on Iranian cities. So everyone is looking for an off-ramp, including ordinary Iranians. Trying to figure out when it's safe to go out, send their kids to school, banks will be functioning normally, all of those questions.
I know, I was just thinking about your comments about the president and how he keeps on saying, victory is ours. We won, he said multiple times yesterday. And I'm thinking back to before those strikes began, he was calling the people who were protesting in the streets to keep protesting and encouraging them. Is anything that's happening right now actually helping them? At one point he wrote, help is on its way.
Yeah, absolutely. This is and one of the tragedies of this war is that Iranian society was deeply mobilized in December and January, confronting the regime, making claims against it, calling for the end to the regime. But the war situation is, in a sense, pushed this movement, popular movement, back. Has not supported it. Under war conditions, not only are people afraid to go out into the street, but the regime now can say the whole nation is under attack. We must unify, rally around the flag, and it's going to use the war situation to securitize society, public spaces, all of those spaces such as coffee shops and universities and marketplaces that were places for Iranians to organize, to challenge the regime, are now closed or monitored very closely. And I don't see this changing. Even if the war is to end, would end today, it's not going to change for weeks, if not months from now.
Well, and the economy was a big reason that people were protesting to begin with because of this very, very steep inflation. People were struggling to survive even before the war. I can only imagine that the amount of devastation is going to make that worse for a lot of these people. How long could it take to come back from this?
Absolutely. I mean, if the bread and butter issues, high inflation, unemployment drove people to the streets, the situation is definitely not getting better when basic infrastructure is being destroyed. One of the things to monitor is how the Islamic Republic manages distribution of food, electricity, water during this war situation. In these first 12 days, most reports suggest stores are still stocked, electricity is working, water is still working. So, quote unquote, they're doing a fairly good job on that front. But how long can this persist? Can this coupon system that they're establishing, can it be maintained to distribute goods and prevent scarcity? And, things are going to be different in different parts of the country. Maybe the capital city, things are more functional, but in smaller towns and provincial towns, there may be more scarcity, more economic challenges that may trigger protests and so forth. So all of these, it's a very fluid and uncertain moment for, I think, Americans here, but most importantly for Iranians on the ground, and how to just get through each individual day.
Yeah, those innocent civilians. Arang Keshavarzen, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate your insights and expertise.